And after that? Am I allowed to breathe after that? Nobody's gonna watch this if I have a Kleenex stuffed in my nose, are they? Unexpected. Takeaways from this video: grief boxes. Dreams are trying to tell you something. Haunted meditation. Starting this video. Perfect timing. Nosebleed. Just in time to video this. And I mean, anyone watching it is like, well, why don't you just wait? This is life with an autoimmune disease, so I mean, I can wait, but it almost sort of goes with the ambience of the video. So, to get into it, haunted house as grieving structure. What the heck does that mean, right? So the past 2 nights I have dreamt that I was in a haunted house. I've had numerous haunted house dreams over the years, but I remember another time when I was having a lot of them was around the time my grandmother died, and my grandfather, each of them. And so that's kind of not where I'm getting this from, but I'm kind of just relating it into that. Also, something I wanted to mention, for anyone who's paying attention, clearly I'm wearing an autumn shirt. Flannels, boots, cider, pumpkin spice, s'mores, and bonfires. I'm filming this in April. Think what you will. So yeah, so the past 2 nights I've had dreams that I was in a haunted house. And the first one, like, stuff in the haunted house just kept creeping me out. It was somebody else's haunted house, right? And I just kept trying to call a friend of mine, who's a friend of mine in real life, so that they would come and pick me up and take me away from this haunted house. And then the dream last night, I don't remember the details specifically, I just know it was kind of on the same theme of like creepy, crawly stuff that brings up ghosts, brings up demons and spirits and creepy feelings. I'm not sure whether I should cover this or not, or just wait to film this. I'll have to refilm it again later if I find it too embarrassing. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to touch on, nobody's gonna watch this if I have a Kleenex stuffed in my nose, are they? Anyway. So I thought I would just talk about how these couple of dreams relate to what I've been dealing with in, like, therapy. And so I guess lately I've been realizing that, I mean, I've known for a long time, I tend to hold on to things. So, and like, some people are like, oh, and they get really judgy and, you know, whatever. I have been combating this tendency to hold on to things for, let's see, 2023 minus 2009, 23 minus 9, for like 14 years, I guess. Yeah, I've been combating this tendency and trying to let go of things, go through things, boxes, piles, stacks, whatever. So think what you will, but everybody has some clutter. And some of us just kind of come by it naturally. Like, I am definitely not the only person in my family who has had this kind of issue. And that's not to point any fingers at anybody, or blame or anything. It's just a thing. And in psychology, something that they know is that it can have to do with, like, brain circuits, that tend more toward OCD. And so, like, there's compassion in there, right? Because, you know, emotional or mental disorders are not something that a person chooses to have. They're not something that a person can control. And they're not something to demonize anybody about or make people feel bad about for having. Or, like, weird, you know? So, usually I make such an effort to talk in, like, a really positive way, and I just left that on, like, weird, and so I'm like, oh, I gotta go back and fix it. So, like, perfectionism, that seems to be another component in, at least my version of OCD, and how that relates to holding on to things, is that often I feel like I have to give it away perfectly, you know, like, if it's in any way recyclable, I've got to do that. If it's in any way still usable by somebody, I've got to make sure that it gets out there to, like, a thrift store or to the right buyer on eBay. I have an eBay store, and I have made several sales, and I'm really proud of myself, because, like, when my nosebleed is done, I will take this off so it's less awkward. But yeah, so, like, the perfectionism gets to be a thing. And also, like, if I'm like, well, I want to finish this project before I get rid of the components that I gathered to do the project, but maybe it's a project I'm not even interested in anymore. So I've kind of talked about that in another video already, and my nose looks jaunty, like it's taking a stand for women's rights or something. Haunted house as grieving structure. So imagine this. You live in a house where there is so much stuff throughout your basement, your attic, your bedrooms, kitchen, living room, dining room, family room, whatever. Hallway. Storage room under the stairs. Alright. You got it. Everywhere. Your garden shed. Everywhere. It's full of stuff from decades of doing stuff, living life, starting projects, spending time with people, you know, having interests, having deadlines, having projects of all magnitudes. And you haven't always finished everything. Normal. Every human. You haven't always cleaned up everything completely. Normal. Human. And also, dust settles. Dust is everywhere. It's floating around, it's coming off of us, whatever. It settles everywhere. In the garden shed, there's soil. You know, you've been potting things, putting things here and there, something spilled one time, you know, your vase of flowers fell over and you just kind of picked it back up and put it, and you were busy, and maybe you patted the counter dry with, you know, a dirty apron, and I don't know. Things happen, life happens. We're not living Pinterest boards. Come on, let's be real. And, you know, like, a staged life is not what a life looks like. It just isn't. We all know that by now. We all know that, right? So, you've got areas of clutter. And they have done what I call sculpturizing. You know, when, like, you put something here and then you put something next to it and in front of it and on top of it and beside it and you start, things start accumulating, and it looks like those rocks from the ocean where, like, the sand and the shells and everything just sort of conglomerated together and then fossilized and, like, held together into a rock. Yeah. So when I see areas of my home where like I put something here, put something there, and it all kind of conglomerated like that, I think of it as, okay, well, this has sculpturized, you know, sculpturizing. It's like a sculpture. And sometimes the arrangements of, you know, things that were placed next to each other look really pretty for a minute or two, and then like at a certain point they have become clutter and it feels like, ugh, it's too much. So you've got this entire full house. I'm creating this vision with you here, so work with me. And you're walking through the house and you start trying to do something. You know, you're taking something out of somewhere and you pick up something you haven't seen in years, and it reminds you of the time when this happened to you, and God, that was sad. And so was there, and you can remember the event when you realized your life was different. And you were going to have to make choices about it, and you were going to have to, you know, whatever you had to do. That is a haunted item. That item, as soon as you saw it, held it, you know, held it up in front of you or whatever. All of those memories came just rushing back in, and there's unprocessed grief there. If you didn't have unprocessed grief related to that item, you would not feel a thing when you come across it in your possessions. Now, before we get into that whole, that's not what I meant to say. I want to delve into that more, because people think, oh, having a feeling, I've got to get rid of it. I'm having a feeling, so let's toss it out. That, I feel like that ties into how people treat friends these days and other people in their lives. They're like, oh, we've had conflict, I must get rid of them. No, guys, what the heck and a half? You can't have friendships if you don't have conflict that you resolve with that friend. Come on, we're supposed to work through conflict. Conflict doesn't make it a toxic relationship. Toxic is much more rare than you actually think it is, although it has become slightly less rare due to people mimicking the horrible relationships they see on TV. You know, like in movies where they were supposed to be extreme, ridiculous examples, but humans mimic. Refocusing back, haunted house. So you picked up this item. Okay. So you're like, I don't want to deal with this right now. And you set it aside again. And then you pick up another thing. You know, maybe you're clutter clearing. Maybe you're looking through stuff. And you find another thing and you're like, oh, I really don't like this anymore. And then the thought occurs, so-and-so gave it to me. You're like, God, so-and-so. We used to be so close, but what happened? Do they ever want to hear from me again? But the thing is so ugly, and but if I let it go, I mean, what if we become friends again? And then they're looking around and wondering why I don't have it. But you get the picture. Like, it's really hard to let go of something when you've got all of these neural connections coming back to that object. So, you know, you've got all these thoughts, got all these neural connections, and, you know, there are some things that you may come across and they are uncomplicated, or they're special. They make you feel, ah, yes, I got that. At this particular time, it was such a special time in my life, and this person I love gave it to me, and I use it all the time. It's very practical. And it's not that one of these things is better than the other. It's that it is like unhaunted for you. I'm taking an example of my sweatpants there. Yes, they're on the floor right now. Yeah, they're uncomplicated, or positive and uncomplicated. So one of the reasons that I realized that this haunted house dream has to do with my processing grief currently and talking about decluttering. So the haunted house dream I had 2 nights ago, the one where I was waiting or hoping I could find the phone so someone would come pick me up, there were piles of clutter in this haunted house. Isn't that interesting? I think that's so fascinating. Like, our minds are amazing and they help us process things that we're working on processing. So, and this is something that I am looking at in therapy with a qualified practitioner of, I think, cognitive behavioral therapy. So yeah, I said that I want to work on this and look at a couple of areas where there are things that I'm keeping that I can't currently use and I have grief associated with them. So I don't know how this is going to go once I actually start going through the items, and maybe I'll show you a little bit of that. But like, I wrote a thing for a group that I'm in on Facebook about how this grieving process is, and just like that I kind of want to sort it into boxes based on what the grief is about. So if it's about having an autoimmune illness, for example, and not being able to do all the things that I had wanted to do or planned to do or thought that I could, you know, like various dance pursuits, various athletic kind of things that would cause my body now too much inflammation, and I just can't do them. And I love how I said athletic pursuits, but one of them is wearing shoes with a heel. So anyway, stay tuned on my eBay page for those, because as soon as I let go and process this grief, they may be coming at you. Available for sale, in other words. So yeah, having boxes about the particular grief, you know, so like just an example of how you could use this in your own life. If you had, you know, if you have some thing where you were going to have a baby, whether you were already en route or not, it was just a plan, maybe it was in your mind, or a wish or a dream, and you started kind of collecting things to get ready for that, or have books that you were reading about that, you know, or various other things. Grief related to a particular person. A lot of people do this with like exes, you know, like, okay, this relationship ended and you box up all their stuff. You know, you see that in movies. But like, you can also do that with a friendship. You know, maybe you had a friend maybe you had a huge fight and the relationship is gone and there's nothing you can do. But yeah, you can make this grief box and kind of put everything that for you feels like it's appropriate for it to be in there. It doesn't have to be something they gave you. It could be something you associate with them. You know, like you bought a cardigan, like the cardigans that they always wear because you were like, oh, you know, it's so cool, and then we're kind of matchy, and you know, like, or whatever. Let's see, what are other common grief things? I know, like, when a loved one passes, that is probably one of the most common forms of, or common things that people grieve. But you don't always want to get rid of all those things from knowing somebody who you love so much. And you don't have to. But it could be helpful to see them all in the same place, and you might, like, get a sense of, this is what I want to do with these things. You know, like, do you have a display cabinet? And you could make a little display of, like, here's Nana's watch that she always wore, you know, when she picked us up from school, and she would check it to make sure the bus was on time or whatever. You know, and here's you know, the heap of cards from Nana over the years that she, you know, because she never missed a birthday. You know, like, here's Nana's scarf. I actually have a really funny story about my grandmother's scarf. She would never want me to share it on YouTube, though. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Moving on. Something else that I've actually heard, and I really respect this so very much, like sometimes we get into a hobby and like we buy the stuff for it and we go and do it however many times, and you know, maybe have a community around it, and like it's a thing and it's part of us for a while, and then we move on and it's no longer part of our life, you know, and we're just not doing that anymore. And maybe you have thoughts like, but I thought I was going to do this thing forever. Basically, you know, I thought I was going to become like a pillar of this community, or I thought I was going to create a lot of things from all this. And you're just sitting there going, gosh, I feel foolish. I have all this stuff for this, and I'm not going to do it. Well, okay. So one thing that's become very popular lately, and I think it's great, is these buy nothing groups. Have you heard of those? So you become a member of one that's in your area, and you post stuff that you are offering to people as a gift. You know, it's free, hence the whole buy nothing thing, but also like you're trying to not buy from stores, and the point of that is that if there's stuff already out there that somebody is getting rid of and it's still good enough to use, so they don't want to put it in the trash and have it go to a landfill if it could still be used, you know, then why would you have, you know, like your local big box store make more of them? Because they're, you know, they have ones in store that they sell to you, but then they also are having production stock them and replenish their stock. If you're buying new all the time, you're having businesses replenish their stock. Basically, you're saying to them, there is a demand, you should make more of these. And, you know, then the stuff that people are trying to get rid of, they're kind of under pressure, like, I really need to get this out of my house. And they might take it to their thrift store, and the thrift store might sell it to somebody else, or, you know, anywhere along the way it might get thrown away. And it's not such a tragedy. Some of the time, some of us really just need to throw things out to get them out of our house, or put them outside the house on the curb, like with a sign that says free. Whatever you need to do, you know? But, I really can't stay on track with this video. I'm like so interested in many various facets of it. But, yeah, haunted house as grieving structure. So imagine you're walking through this haunted house that we've created, this image in our minds of all the surfaces are covered. There are piles of things on the floor, stacks, heaps. All the shelves are double rows of books or knickknacks or whatever. And as you slowly walk through this house, you notice how still, and not really in a good way, how still and stagnant the air feels. It feels like the items can't breathe. You know, it feels like the house is tired. It feels like dim and gloom and grunge and tiredness. And it's not that we're judging the house or the owner, whoever owns this house, but in this visualization, you own this house. And this is your undealt with grief and emotions in this house. And so there is a layer of dust, because in this society, excuse the raspiness, in this society, we don't like to deal with our emotions, do we? We kind of like to escape from them, push them away, try to deny them, justify them, rationalize them, discharge them inappropriately at people who don't deserve it, or people who do deserve it still inappropriately, or we try to escape them in a variety of ways. Netflix binges, alcohol binges, food binges. Binges are the problem, aren't they? You know, or risky behavior of various kinds. But none of that makes you feel better. That adds to the clutter in the house. And no, I don't mean your actual house and the actual physical, tangible stuff that's in the house. It might, you know, especially if it's a shopping binge. But, and no judgment. That was just humor. So you're moving through this house, and it feels stagnant and tired and dusty and grim. And you don't really feel like you can access the items that are there. They feel like they're under some sort of force field or shield or layer. And it doesn't feel like you have permission to touch anything. I want you to take a deep breath in, let it out slowly. Again, deep breath in and slowly let it out. And one more. It always trips me out when people say one more, and I'm like, and after that? Am I allowed to breathe after that? So we're here in this house, this stagnant, tired house, without permission to touch. But it is all yours. And I want you to pick one thing. Imagine one item and place your hands onto it. Hold it. What are its textures? What feeling does it hold inside of it? How does light interact with it? Can you turn it? Can you lift it? Can you pour love into it? Or does it pour love into you? Do you feel nothing towards it? Do you want to feel something towards it? Open your eyes if they were closed. Whatever that is that you had your hands holding, in your imagination, of course. Write it down in your journal. Write down what it was, what it looked like, everything, what it felt like, and see if it reminds you of anything in your life that you are grieving. And write about it. And that in itself will help you grieve a little bit. And you might notice some things as you go on about your day. There might be things that you're willing to let go that you don't have to pressure yourself into. Because that's really, really important when it comes to stuff. If you have to pressure yourself, there's something there that isn't dealt with, that you need to deal with, regardless of whether you let go of the physical stuff or not. The grief still needs to be processed. And so go into your own mental haunted house that we've created here together and investigate with curiosity, like Tara Brach says. And, you know, go try a Tara Brach meditation. She is amazing. And we are very different, so she can lead in ways that I have never done. So I hope that this enlightened you and or comforted you, made you appreciate how clean your house is. I don't know. Takeaways from this video: grief boxes. Label them. You know, autoimmune illness, grief. Put all the stuff related to it in there, for example. Dreams are trying to tell you something. Your brain is a genius. Whether you are or not. And haunted house meditation. Unexpected. I wish you good. Soul Bloom, signing off. See ya. That was super weird. I'm gonna try that again.